Hello, I'm Ellen from Be So Creative in Las Cruces, New Mexico. If you are a quilter, chances are you end up with a lot of these left over after you have trimmed a quilt. Good pieces of batting that are a little too skinny to do much with. Often we just throw them away, and they're not very friendly to the environment. Even though they may be made of natural products like cotton, when they go through the manufacturing process that gets them packaged and into our stores, they lose a lot of their qualities that allow them to decompose easily. So they do end up in our landfill for quite a long time. Why shouldn't these nice products be keeping somebody warm this winter? I want to show you how I use my serger to recycle these and make new quilts out of them. After I've trimmed these from my quilt, and before I fold them up and store them away for a later time, I go ahead and straighten out the edges. So I don't mind folding them over several times here. I'll take my ruler and my rotary cutter and just get a nice straight edge out of them. And after I've straightened both sides, I fold them up, save them away, and I'll get them out again later when I'm ready to make a new piece of quilt batting. I like to lay my quilt and the backing down on the floor, and then I take my individual pieces of batting strips and I lay them on there just like puzzle pieces until I feel like my whole quilt is covered with a little bit of margin on each edge. This is what it looks like when my cat gets involved in the process. So now I start lifting up the pieces one by one, and here are a few strips that I've lifted up after I laid it all out on the floor, and now I'm going to sew these together over at my serger. Set your serger up for a stitch called 2-thread flat lock wide. In this stitch, you're going to be using the left needle of your overlock serger. And the secret to making this stitch correctly is that you'll be asked to take your upper looper, which is right here, and convert it with an upper looper converter. Look in your manual in your machine and find out how you do this upper looper conversion. It's probably a little pin somewhere, either attached to your upper looper or down in your accessories bin as a separate part. This little attachment hooks over and a little pin goes into the eye where thread normally goes through the upper looper. You won't be using any upper looper thread for this, and so you need to convert the upper looper so that it fills in the little hole where thread usually goes. That's the only way it can properly form this stitch. Follow the guidelines to set up the rest of your machine for this 2-thread wide flat lock stitch. I also like to set my stitch length about as long as it can go. On my Bernina today, it goes all the way up to 4.5. There are only 2 threads involved, the lower looper and the left needle, which is also the only needle that we have in the machine. The secret to making this stitch is to lay your 2 pieces of batting so that the edges are even. Place them under the presser foot. And notice the marks on the front toe of your presser foot. These marks indicate where your needles are located. And the one on my machine to the farthest right shows me where my knife blade is. Even though my knife is up, there's not going to be any cutting away of the fabric here because I'm going to have my fabric moved over to the left so it's not even going to contact the knife. I like to place my fabric so that the edge of my batting strips is lined up with where the right needle mark is. The stitch is going to occur with the left needle, and it's going to be very close to the edge, about 1/8 of an inch to the left of the edge. And again, I'm keeping the edge of my batting along the right needle marking, and it's sewing with the left needle. The nice thing about sergers is they sew really fast. When you're finished sewing and you look at what you've done, you're going to see that it looks kind of messy. In fact, it looks like you've done it wrong. There's a lot of loose thread hanging over to the right. Remember that I sewed right on the edge. That is exactly the way this stitch is designed to work. I am now going to open this fabric up, and I'm going to very gently pull and tug using that slack that is in the thread in the back. And all that slack thread ends up stretching out, and I am left with the two pieces of batting butted straight up against each other. There's absolutely no overlap, and there's not a gap in between them. They are exactly lined up, and they're lightly stitched together. When I feel this, it feels very flat. All I can feel is this ladder stitch that the flat lock stitch makes. When my quilt top goes on top of that and it gets quilted in, I'm not even going to be able to feel that there is a seam in my batting there.